ahead and quiet down, that'd be great. Thank you. So first off, if you guys could all silence all of your cell phones or any other electronic devices, that would be great. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. You all made it through your first day. How are you feeling? Good. Good. All right, well, I hope you're excited for today. Please rise for the pledges led by Brittany Avant.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the 4-H pledge. I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living, for my club, my community, my country, and my world. You may be seated.
Thank you, Brittany. All right. Well, my name is Haley Lundaby, and I am one of your youth leadership team members from Idaho. We are so thrilled to have you all here today. This morning, we have some very important speakers with powerful messages set up for you. So I encourage you all to take in their messages and let them empower you to join in and start up your own revolution. Now, we have Sergio Martinez Beltran to introduce our first speaker.
Good morning, delegates. I'm happy to be back here. My name is Sergio Martinez Beltran from Puerto Rico. Today's first speaker is Dr. Shavonda Jacobs-Young. Dr. Jacobs-Young is Acting Director for the USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Prior to serving as NIFA's Acting Director, Dr. Jacobs-Young was the first director of the Office of the Chief Scientist in USDA. In this role, Dr. Jacobs-Young worked with the scientific leadership across the department to ensure that the highest standards of intellectual rigor and scientific integrity were integral to the department's research and were the bedrock of the scientific advice provided to the department and external stakeholders. Dr. Jacobs-Young came to the Office of the Chief Scientist after having served as a Senior Policy Analyst for Agriculture in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. There, she supported the President's Science Advisor and others within the Executive Office of the President on a variety of agricultural and scientific activities. From 2002 to 2009, Dr. Jacobs-Young led competitive research programs as a national program leader in the USDA National Research Initiative, formerly USDA's largest competitive program. She administered funding programs through grants given in the areas of bio-based products, including non-food processing, biotechnology, metabolic engineering, bioenergy production, and forest products research. Dr. Jacobs-Young's corporate experience involves working with various corporations, including E.I. DuPont and Moore and Company, Kimberly-Clark Company, Federal Paper Board, Kraft General Foods, and Weyerhaeuser Company. Dr. Jacobs-Young holds a Master of Science and PhD degrees in Wood and Paper Science and a Bachelor of Science in Pulp and Paper Science and Technology from North Carolina State University. She also is a graduate of American University's programs for executive leadership in public policy implementation. Delegates, let's give Dr. Jacobs-Young a warm welcome.
Thank you, Sergio. Good morning. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be with you here today. On behalf of the staff at the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, I want to officially welcome you to this year's National 4-H Conference. We are so pleased to have you here in Washington, D.C. I also want to welcome our guest speakers, Dr. Jill Biden, and USDA's Secretary, Mr. Tom Vilsack. Dr. Biden, Secretary, thank you for making time to be with us here today. I know you'll find a very engaging audience. At USDA, we spend a lot of time talking about educating the next generation of leaders. And I can tell you, we look to our 4-H programs as a model for shaping young minds and becoming the leaders of tomorrow. As civically engaged leaders in 4-H, you are truly the best and the brightest. We also believe that it's you, the youth, who are truly at the heart of 4-H's success. We believe it's vitally important that you have this opportunity every year to come together to learn and to share information on issues that are important to you and our communities. My hope is that everyone here will take some knowledge home with them, and that you will be able to think creatively and strategically and find ways to be a positive impact on your community's needs. As future leaders, your involvement in 4-H is so important. Change and action, even at the smallest levels, begins with you, and it begins now. Once again, I want to welcome you to Washington, D.C. and to this year's National 4-H Conference. I know our 4-H staff have lined up an excellent program that is exciting and inspiring. So be sure to have a great time and enjoy your time here in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Young. My name is Brittany Avant from the Youth Leadership Team from Florida. Our next speaker, Secretary Tom Vilsack, was appointed by President Barack Obama as the 30th Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture and sworn into office on January 21, 2009. Secretary Vilsack shares President Obama's commitment to a rural economy that continues to reward hard work and responsibility while growing a strong middle class. To help drive innovation and build thriving economies in rural communities, USDA is promoting job growth and higher incomes through expanded production of renewable energy, outdoor recreational opportunities, and development of local and regional food supplies. USDA has made historic investments in rural housing and rural infrastructure like fire and police stations, libraries, and health clinics. Prior to his appointment, Secretary Vilsack served 2 terms as the governor of Iowa, served in the Iowa State Senate, and mayor of Mount Pleasant, Iowa. A native to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Secretary Vilsack was born into an orphanage and adopted in 1951. After graduating Hamilton College and Albany Law School, he moved to Mount Pleasant, his wife Christy's hometown, where he practiced law. The Vilsacks have 2 adult sons, a daughter-in-law, and 2 grandchildren. We are very excited to have Secretary Vilsack with us today. Please help me welcome our Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary Tom Vilsack.
Folks, I'm going to speak down here. It just seemed like there was quite a distance between the speaker and the audience, so if you don't mind, I'll speak down here. Brittany, thank you very much for that kind introduction. It is great to be with all of you this morning. This is a fabulous opportunity for us to talk about the future. But before I do, let's just take a real brief moment to reflect on the current status of things in rural America. I'm pleased to note that last year was a record year for us in agriculture. Never before have farmers and ranchers and producers had net income combined over $100 billion. It was a great year for agriculture. We expect another good year this year. And we're also beginning to see unemployment go down in rural America at a faster rate than a lot of other places across the country. And there are many reasons for that. One reason is that we're exporting more of our agricultural products across the world. We had a record year in agricultural exports. Another reason is because farmers and ranchers and producers are embracing conservation in record amounts, a record number of acres enrolled in conservation programs, and that expands outdoor recreational opportunities. It's really important to note that hunting and fishing and hiking and biking and four-wheeling and all the things that are done outdoors a fairly significant involvement in the economy. About a $730 billion industry is what outdoor recreation is. So we attract more of that to urban centers and more urban folks into the rural communities. We can help build a stronger rural America. It's also local and regional food systems. There's an awful lot of opportunity here as people are getting into smaller sized farming operations, linking themselves up with expanded numbers of farmers markets, working with local schools and institutional purchasers of food to have a better connection. So many of us are distant, many generations removed from those who produce our food. So we're working really hard at USDA to draw a better connection between those who consume food and those who produce it, so that we have an appreciation for our farmers, our ranchers, and our producers. And finally, there's a tremendous opportunity in the bio-based economy, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. Now, you're going to hear in just a few minutes from Dr. Jill Biden, and I should say, just as an aside, how extraordinarily proud I am to be associated with an administration and Dr. Biden's work, along with the First Lady's work, military families. She'll talk a little bit about the Readiness Campaign, the important role that we all have to play in making sure that those who come back from Iraq and Afghanistan are in a position to have healthy and happy lives. My 20-year-old nephew just returned from Afghanistan, having spent 7 months as a Marine, an explosives expert. I can tell you that we are very, very happy to have him back home, and we pray for the safe return of all those young men and women who are currently over in Afghanistan, including the 55 people who are from the USDA, who are working with Afghan farmers to encourage more farming opportunities in Afghanistan. So a real treat for you in just a few minutes. You know, we talk about the whole notion of our head, our hands, our heart, and our health. And I think that what I'd like to leave with you this morning is the tremendous responsibility and opportunity you have as the next generation of those who will live, work, and raise your families primarily in rural areas of the country. You actually have the capacity and the ability to redesign, re-engineer, not just agricultural opportunity, but also the American economy. And by that I mean the capacity to use what we grow, whether it's crops or plants or what we raise in livestock, and use them for far more, many more purposes than just food and fiber. We're seeing this initially in the expansion of biofuel production and renewable energy production. In just the last 3 years, we've doubled the amount of renewable energy generation in this country, and we are now producing a record amount of biofuel. What that means is that we're producing job opportunities and income opportunities for farmers, but we're also reducing our reliance on foreign oil. For the first time in 13 years, we're now actually importing less than 50% of the oil we need for this country. My challenge to you is to consider these new opportunities, not to stop at just simply focusing on fuel and renewable energy, but thinking about the possibilities of being able to take plant material, crop residue, and livestock waste and literally produce everything an economy needs. It's happening today in a small way, but your generation can expand it in a very large way. There are 3,100 companies in America today that are taking plant material, crop residue, livestock waste, and turning it into a wide variety of different things we use on a day-to-day basis. For example, there are folks who are taking crop residue and turning it into chemicals. There are folks who are taking plant residue and turning it into polymers, plastic, that's not oil-based. They're using those same materials to produce fabric and fiber. Just think of the enormous opportunities. The farmer who will figure out through research with a land-grant university how to continue to expand productivity so that we're able to meet these multiple needs. The folks who will design and produce and make the implements that will allow us to harvest the biomass more effectively and use it for additional materials. The capacity to take those residues, those things we've used to think of as waste, and actually create businesses that will produce it into chemicals, polymers, fibers, and fabrics that can be used in the United States or exported around the world. the people who will be in the business of marketing these new products. We have a program at USDA called the Bio-Preferred Program. And the President has asked me to double the amount of bio-preferred products that we purchase as a federal government. Right now, USDA purchases about $25 million of product that is bio-based, plant-based. And he wants us to double the number. Right now we have about 9,000 products that we can purchase. There are solvents and cleaners, personal care items that are all plant or crop-based. This produces tremendous opportunity for you. But it's going to require people that are well-versed in math and science, well-versed in the capacity to make, to use your hands, to make and create things. The President has a very compelling vision of the future of this country. We get back in the business of making and creating things that the rest of the world needs and wants. We export what we make and create, and we produce wealth and a stronger middle class here in the United States. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about, and this is the kind of amazing future that you have in front of you. I was at Ohio State not long ago, and I was basically taking a tour of their bio-based operations and some of the research that they're working on. As you travel to your next event away from campus here, you may see a dandelion or two. Now, most people, when they see dandelions, they're thinking, how do we get rid of them? The folks at Ohio State are thinking that the oily substance in the stem of the dandelion, they're actually beginning to make rubber from that oily substance. It could create a whole new rubber industry in this country. It's something that we import from the rest of the world. It puts us at risk when we do, because many of the countries that produce rubber are not necessarily countries that agree with us. This would make us independent. It would allow us to create new synthetic types of materials using dandelions. Well, how about this one? I'm walking down the aisle and I see this large chunk. It's black. I walk up to it and I said, what is this? And the fellow says, well, that's asphalt. I said, well, you know, I'm the Secretary of Agriculture. I'm not the transportation guy. That's Ray LaHood. Why are you showing me asphalt? Well, they said, we thought you'd be interested in this because it's made from hog manure. I said, no, really. What's the deal here? It's actually the adhesive material that's binding the asphalt is hog manure. So we've tested it on roads across Ohio. He said it's done a fabulous job. It's withstood a very tough winter. He went one step too far, though, when he said that it makes the tires squeal. It was a fascinating experience to see something that in many parts of the country is considered a problem now helps to create a solution. And bright young minds, creative young minds, that's basically what this is all about. And that's where you come in. This is an opportunity to use your head, your hands, your heart, to be able to improve the health of the economy of your country, which in turn allows it to maintain its strength and the freedoms and liberties we enjoy. Look, gang, I'm telling you, you have a fabulous life ahead of you. If you dedicate yourself, if you focus, there are unlimited opportunities for this generation of Americans, particularly those who live, work, and come from rural areas. So I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to Dr. Biden's remarks. And then after she's finished, we come back and take some questions from all of you. But really happy to be here. This is a partnership between USDA and 4-H that started in 1927, this conference. You all have been around for about 100 years. USDA is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. And I will just finish with this. When folks in Congress say how tough things are, you'll hear that when you visit the Congress, things are tough. In 1862, the USDA was established, the Homestead Act was passed that allowed for western expansion. The Intercontinental Railroad was created and supported, and the land-grant university system was developed. All by one Congress, all in 1 year, right in the midst of the Civil War. So this country is capable of doing great things during tough times. And your generation, I think, could be the most innovative and most creative generation of Americans in a long, long time. So I'm looking forward to your progress. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Secretary Vilsack, for joining us today. Good morning. I'm Stephen McFall, a member of the 2012 Youth Leadership Team, and I hail from the great state of Pennsylvania. And today, I have the honor to introduce the Second Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. Dr. Biden, wife of Vice President Joe Biden, wears many hats. She's a grandmother and a mother, a lifelong educator, a proud Blue Star mom, and an active member of her community. As Second Lady, Dr. Jill Biden works to bring attention to the sacrifices made by military families, to highlight the importance of community colleges across America, and to raise awareness around areas of particular importance to women, such as breast cancer prevention. Dr. Biden teaches English full-time at a college in nearby Virginia. As a military mom, Dr. Biden knows firsthand how difficult it is to have a loved one deployed overseas. In Delaware, she was active with a nonprofit organization called Delaware Boots on the Ground, which helps families during times of military deployment by organizing community events to raise awareness and support. As Second Lady, Dr. Biden has dedicated herself to shining a light on military families' strengths and courage, as well as the challenges that they face. She travels regularly to military bases across the United States and abroad to meet with military families and the members. Through their Joining Forces initiative, the First Lady Michelle Obama and Dr. Biden have issued a national challenge to all Americans to take action and find ways to support and engage our military families in their own communities. At www.joiningforces.gov, Americans can find many ways to take action. Dr. Biden and the Vice President have 3 children. Ashley, a social worker, Bo, the Attorney General of the state of Delaware and a major in the Delaware Army National Guard, and Hunter, a lawyer. Would you all please join me in welcoming Dr. Jill Biden.
Hello. Good morning. It's great to be with 4-Hers from all around the country. I wanted to come here today to thank you for all of your tremendous work that you do to support our troops and our military families. So I know that there are 4-Hers here from Delaware. Where are you sitting? Hi, all the way in the back. Thank you, Stephen, for your introduction, and thank you, Secretary Vilsack, for your terrific leadership. Dr. Loxman, thank you for hosting this conference and for your great work. As many of you may know, I'm a military mom. My son, Bo, is a soldier in the Delaware Army National Guard, and he was deployed to Iraq for a year. And that was really a tough year for our family. Bo has 2 young children, Natalie and Hunter, and of course, they miss their dad terribly. But one of the most wonderful things that happened to them during that year was the support and the love that they got from family, from friends, from teachers, and from neighbors. Our family knows firsthand just how important it is for children to have that kind of support when a parent is deployed. That's why the First Lady, Michelle Obama, and I started our Joining Forces initiative. We want to encourage all Americans to find ways to support our military families. Individuals, groups, and businesses have risen to the challenge in so many wonderful ways. The work of the 4-H is a perfect example of what we hope people all across our country will do. You have a long history of supporting our military families. Whether it's through the military 4-H club program, directly serving military kids on bases, or through programs like Operation Military Kids, helping non-military youth support kids impacted by deployment, 4-H has provided a sense of community for military-connected children for decades. 4-H has given military-connected children an outlet, a chance to use their talents and help them reach their full potential, even when they face some unique challenges and difficulties. Kids like Kyle Huey, an Arizona teen who started Speak Out Military Kids to help other teens cope with deployment. When Kyle's own father was deployed to Iraq, Kyle made videos to keep in touch with his dad while he was away. Then he started teaching other military kids to use video production to tell their stories too. What a great idea. Community support can be especially important for children of our troops who serve in the National Guard and Reserves. These families typically live in regular, non-military neighborhoods like yours and often don't have the built-in support of a military community. Sometimes their neighbors don't even know that they have a service member in their midst. That's why I'm so pleased that the 4-H is focusing some attention on children of National Guard members by helping them develop leadership and communication skills. I want to take a moment to recognize the National Guard youth participants here today. Teens like Kirsten Morris from Georgia. Kirsten, where are you? Hi, Kirsten. Last year, Kirsten met with her state school superintendent to share some of the unique challenges that military kids face, including frequent transitions and the challenges of readjusting to new schools, new friends, new teams. Kirsten saw a need and stepped up to address it. Great job, Kirsten. Yeah, let's give her an applause. But you are all here today because of your extraordinary leadership and your commitment to service. You are role models and mentors. As you continue to achieve, we will look to you to keep making a difference in your communities and across this country. A few months ago, we marked the end of combat operations in Iraq, bringing home the last American troops serving there. Since 2003, hundreds of thousands of men and women have served multiple deployments in Iraq, enduring long and challenging separations from their loved ones. Our troops continue to serve in Afghanistan, as you all know. As a nation, we have asked so much of them and their families, while they ask so little of us. The challenges don't end when our troops come home. They and their families should always feel that they are just a handshake away from a caring and supportive neighbor or friend who has their back. All of you share a very important trait with our troops and veterans: the desire to serve your country. It is deeply ingrained in them as it is in all of you. While they lead on the battlefield, you lead in your communities. While they protect their brothers and sisters in uniform, you find ways to support your classmates and peers. You are all a part of that same fabric. And over the next few decades, we're going to continue to need to rely on one another. One of the tasks that will define leaders of your generation is supporting our veterans and military families as they have supported us. So thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for having me here today, and enjoy your conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Biden, for speaking with us today. Now, if you have a photo op with the Second Lady, please go to that designated area at this time. It is now time for the question and answer session with Secretary Vilsack. Secretary Vilsack, would you please join me?
Microphone here again. Yes.
And a photo op with the second lady, I guess if I don't, so I've got to take these questions. Fire away.
Secretary, good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of the 2012 National 4-H Conference Delegates, we'd like to thank you once again for taking time out of your busy schedule to come in and speak with us today. My question for you.
Wait a second, what part of New England are you from?
I'm sorry, my name is Juan Jackson, and I am a delegate from the great state of Florida. My question for you today is, what is the USDA doing to attract students and to pursue careers in agriculture?
Well, it's important, I think, for us to define first agriculture, because I want to make sure that we don't define it too narrowly. One of the things I'm trying to encourage folks to think about are the enormous variety of careers in agriculture. For example, I would probably be in a little trouble if I didn't mention research as an opportunity here for people to expand productivity and protection of crops and animals. Research is a very important component of agriculture. I'd probably also, with Dr. Biden being here today, probably get in a little trouble if I didn't also point out the fact that the ability to use your hands to make farm implements, these tractors, combines, planters, sophisticated machinery. Our country needs people that work not just with their head, but also with their hands, and there's a certain dignity of working with your hands that we sometimes, I think, in this country fail to recognize, fail to appreciate. We need people who can do that and do it well. So when we talk about agriculture, let's make sure we talk about the broad array of careers, not just the farmers and ranchers. But we're doing a couple of things. First of all, we've got a number of internship programs at USDA. Even in tough budget times, we still feel it important to create opportunities for bright young people who are in college, who have just left college, to spend some time at a USDA facility to see the broad array of responsibilities we have at USDA. You might not think that rural development, for example, answers your question about what we're doing to young people in agriculture. But the reality is that many farm families require off-farm income, so rural development, job growth, job creation in rural areas is very, very important to maintaining the farm. So you may want to work in rural development. You may want to work in a research facility, at an ARS facility, to get a sense of what USDA researchers do. You may be engaged in making sure that the food is safe that we consume, and the ability and the opportunity to work in our food safety area is dramatic and significant. So there are a whole series of things. Internships, number one. Number two, if you are someone who's interested in getting in the farming business and you don't know how to get started or where to get started, USDA has a number of beginning farmer and rancher development programs that we work, in which we partner with Land-Grant University or partner with a nonprofit entity to give people a better understanding of how to put together a business plan. What exactly does it mean to get in the farming business? And then work with our Farm Service Agency to get the credit to be able to buy that piece of machinery, or maybe rent that land to get started. So there are beginning, rancher, and farmer development programs. We also mentioned earlier this whole local and regional food system opportunity. We've seen a lot of young people want to get engaged in that. So we have our Know Your Farmer Compass, which is an interactive website at USDA.gov that shows you a step-by-step process of how you might want to get into the local and regional food system work. That would allow you to maybe take 10 acres or 20 acres, produce an organic crop, and then link you up with a school or a farmer's market or some other business that would need that crop to be able to get started in the farming business. So those are three examples of things we are doing at USDA to get young people engaged. If you go on that website, you'll find out information about the internship programs. If you tour the website, you'll see the beginning farmer rancher program, and you'll also learn a little bit more about Know Your Farmer, which are three good opportunities for young people to get engaged.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Wishart, and I am from Texas. How is the USDA working with the Department of Labor on proposed rules limiting labor in agriculture for people younger than 16 years of age? And what implications would these new rules bring to farmers in rural areas of America?
It's a good question, and one that I think involves a couple of different things. First of all, USDA has a relationship with sister agencies where we keep an eye on what they're doing that may impact and affect agriculture, rural areas. And if we see something that we think might have an impact, or positive or negative, we reach out to our sister agency and offer help and assistance in crafting a rule or regulation in a way that will be beneficial to get the result that the department wants, but doesn't necessarily harm or interfere with the ability to get the job done in rural areas. So with this Department of Labor rule, we understood that the Department of Labor had a deep concern about the safety of children. And I think everybody has that concern. We've actually seen a significant increase in the number of deaths associated with activities around grain elevators, where young people get trapped in an elevator and it's, suffocating. It's a tragic, tragic thing. And oftentimes it's because they have not been adequately trained or adequately understand the risks that are associated with working in grain elevator. In crafting the rule initially, I think the Department of Labor was focused on that type of activity and on activities that take place in large commercial-sized operations. They didn't really quite understand and fully appreciate what happens on a lot of small family operations, where a grandfather, uncle, or nephew will say to a niece or nephew or a grandson or granddaughter or son and daughter, we need you to do this chore. This will help the family out. We might actually pay you a little something to put towards your college expense, or maybe give you the seed money to, establish a 4-H project for the state fair. And this is how families basically communicate the value of hard work and the rewards that come from hard work. So we went to the Department of Labor and said, you really, right now, the way this is being interpreted out in the countryside is it's going to prevent that opportunity. And you really don't want to do that, because that value system is extraordinarily important, not just to the families, not just to the rural community, but to the country. We want people to understand the value of hard work. We want to reward hard work. We want to support hard work. And we want the young people to understand that there is a direct connection between that dollar that's in your pocket and the sweat on your brow when you're working in the hot sun and doing tough work. And we want you to feel that pride. So they basically took the portion of the rule that was most objectionable and they basically took it back. In other words, they said, we now understand that this has been misinterpreted, or perhaps we didn't word it quite right, and it's being looked at as something that would be detrimental and harmful. So they've basically withdrawn that part of the rule. And for the rest of the rule, they're basically examining it to make sure that it doesn't have unintended consequences. So we're working with them, and I think before this rule becomes final, you're going to see significant changes to it, which will make sense, because no one wants youngsters to die in grain elevators because they don't understand the risk. And that's pretty dangerous stuff. At the same time, we don't want to prevent somebody from getting on a garden tractor and doing chores, or riding horses, or all of the things that may have been interpreted not to be possible. So rest assured, we're engaged. We're looking at this, and we're going to make sure that it will make sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's terrific. Thank you.
Hello, I'm from Adams County, Wisconsin. I'm Nicole Smith, sorry. How do you regulate that organic foods are reliably organic?
Well, let me just start by saying this is an area that's really a fast-growing part of agriculture. It's now a multi-billion-dollar industry, and a lot of folks are very interested in that organic label. So what we've done at USDA is we've established a separate, distinct missionary or agency or department, if you will, solely dedicated to all things organic. And one of the things that that new missionary did was to begin looking at the organic standards to make sure that when something says it's organic, it means something, that it's definable and that there are certain practices that have to be followed. One example is organic beef. How often or how long does it have to be in pasture? Can it be fed in the barn, so to speak, as opposed to being outside? What are the rules, what are the standards, what are the requirements so that that organic standard meant something? We know that that brand has value, we want to maintain it. So we've been focused on making sure that the standard means something, and then making sure that they're enforceable. Okay, that's one thing we've done. The second thing we've done is we've tried to expand opportunities for folks who are in this business. Not just simply selling locally to a farmer's market or to a grocery store or to a school or institutional purchaser, but also looking for ways in which we might be able to export our organic product. Well, that means that we have to make sure that the definition of organic is the same in Wisconsin as it is in Ontario, or it's the same in Wisconsin as it is in France, Paris. So we've entered into agreements with both Canada and the EU so that we basically have equivalency. In other words, we will respect their organic label, they will respect ours, which expands market opportunity tremendously. So it's about the definition, making sure it's specific, making sure that we enforce it and protect it. Okay?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Rowe, and I'm from North Carolina. My question is that I know that the U.S.
Sorry about last night.
Yeah, I know. That really sucked.
Where are you folks from Kansas? Anybody from Kansas? Yeah, well, I guess you're probably feeling pretty good about this. How about Kentucky? Anybody from Kentucky? Yeah, I have Kentucky and Kansas in my final game. I'm not going to tell you who I think is going to win that game. I feel pretty good about the fact that I got 2 of the 4 finalists. Sorry. Starting the day off wrong, sorry.
I know that the U.S. is trying to get away from the use of tobacco products by Americans by enforcing no smoking areas and no smoking communities. What is the USDA planning to do to support the tobacco-dependent communities?
Part of the tobacco settlement and part of the Farm Bill called for transition payments to tobacco farmers to allow them to transition to different crops. And I think you're finding a lot of tobacco farmers now embracing soybean production as a profitable opportunity. The second thing we're doing, which is kind of an interesting opportunity, is to see whether or not there are other uses. It goes back to my earlier comments about the bioeconomy, bio-based economy. Are there other uses for tobacco? Ironically and interestingly enough, there is some research being done on the use of tobacco as a cure for cancer. Not as a cause of cancer, but as a cure for cancer. So, 2 things. Focusing on research and finding new and creative ways to use tobacco that are not necessarily harmful, but at the same time giving tobacco farmers the capacity to transition to a new and different crop. Those are the 2 things.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joel Weaver. I'm from the state of Florida. And do you think it is practical to recommend every township in the U.S. to set aside public land for a community garden? If so, how?
Well, I don't think it's practical that we mandate that, but I think it is practical that we encourage people to consider that. There's a difference between a mandate, which forces people to do something they may not otherwise do, and incentives to encourage people to do what you think might be the right thing to do. We at USDA have a program called the People's Garden, which we're encouraging USDA facilities, and we have thousands of them around the country to put together a community garden. Essentially what we're doing is the produce from that garden is being donated to food banks. Last year we donated nearly 900,000 pounds from our nearly 1,500 people's gardens. The other thing we're doing is we're trying to encourage cities in particular to look at urban farming as a new creative way to use brownfields or spaces where they may not have had much economic activity, but that you could, with maybe raised bed, create new opportunities for people, particularly families that may be struggling to grow their own, better connection with the farming business, so there's better appreciation for those who farm. Detroit is an example of a city that's embraced this notion. Chicago is very interested in this as well. I'm sure there are other cities around the country that are looking at this. And what we do is provide technical assistance through extension and through our website. The People's Garden website is encouraging a lot of community garden activities. So there are a whole series of ways in which we can help and incent, but I don't think it's probably a very good idea to mandate that. I think it would be hard to get that done.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Grace Feliciana. I'm a 4-H member from Puerto Rico. And my question is that Puerto Rico depends on an 85% of agriculture goods from importations and only about 15% from what we produce. How will the Department of Agriculture help us to reduce our dependence from other countries and help us to better our agriculture?
Well, that gets back into the research area. The ability of our research, roughly 80% of our research, 78% of our research within USDA is focused on some aspect of improving productivity or protection of crops and livestock, or creating an environment in which crops and livestock can be more easily and more sustainably raised. So one thing we would do is we would take a look at what Puerto Rico is good at producing and trying to make sure that it produces more of it so that it not only meets the needs of the folks in Puerto Rico, but also creates good opportunities for Puerto Ricans. If you're able to produce a surplus and you're able to export that, that brings wealth into your community. Every $1 billion of ag exports generates 8,400 jobs. So to the extent that you can expand your own export potential, you create more jobs, more income, more wealth. Not so much necessarily focusing on more agriculture, but taking advantage when you are more productive. Secondly, I think it gets back to the community garden. There are opportunities for individuals to take matters into their own hands and take a small plot of land that they may own and convert it into a garden that then creates either an income opportunity for them at a farmer's market or creates alternatives for them to produce their own, which they consume, so that you become less dependent on imports. Puerto Rico is not a large place, so I think there's realistically you have to be realistic about what your needs are. You export something that the rest of us would like to have. Met with my team from Iowa. It would be really hard to encourage someone to travel to Iowa in January for sun and fun. We could do that in August. State fair, best state fair in the country. Well, we can't do it in January, but you in Puerto Rico can do it 12 months out of the year, right?
Sure.
So you basically encourage us to travel to Puerto Rico to spend our resources there. So your economy is very much built on tourism, as it should be, because you have this beautiful location. So you have to understand what your strengths are. You maximize your strengths, you export your surpluses, and you market to the rest of the country what your strengths are, which one of them is tourism. So I would say don't be so concerned about being self-dependent from an agricultural perspective. Figure out how you can produce more of what you produce well and export it and continue to market Puerto Rico as a place to visit.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline Ningles from Minnesota. My question is, what are you doing to promote egg literacy and encouraging people to know where their food comes from?
Well, on the ag literacy standpoint, we're probably not doing enough, to be honest. We're really need to figure out ways in which young people, very young people in elementary school, get a better sense and understanding of what happens on the farm. I think we sometimes paint a simplistic view of farming, which then sort of continues on to a person's life. I don't think very many people realize how sophisticated farming is. You not only have to know how to plant something or how to raise something, which is what a farmer does, a rancher does, but you also have to understand how to market it. Very sophisticated in terms of when you sell whatever it is you're raising or growing. And you also have to figure out your inputs, when to purchase them, and how far forward to purchase them, based on what you see the economic trends, just not nationally, but globally are. For example, with high gas prices, you have to understand that gas is priced on a world market, oil is priced on a world market. You have to be sensitive to that world market so you can make decisions about when to purchase fertilizer and so forth. So it's sophisticated. And I think we need to do a better job of explaining that sophistication at an early enough age and reinforcing it through the K-12 system. Unfortunately, when tough budgets are tight, what happens is the first thing that gets cut is the home ag or the ag programs, because there's a limited group of people that are interested in them. Our Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food effort is designed to sort of reverse that, to have a better connection between producers and consumers. And with this local and regional food system effort, we're seeing a lot of younger people wanting to get back on the farm, wanting to get more re-engaged in producing food. Expanded farmers markets is another opportunity to educate people about, farming and where their food comes from and the risks associated with it, which is why we've put a lot of resources into doubling the number of farmers markets in just the last 3 years. So there are a whole series of things we're trying to do. We've also worked just recently with the Department of Education to have a closer relationship with our 4-H program and our FFA program to get the Department of Education, particularly in rural areas, to do a better job of advocating the need for ag education. And we're very close to signing a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Education will allow us to use the work in partnership to explain to schools it's important that people know where their food comes from. Let me tell you, I can't overemphasize this. American agriculture is an extraordinary advantage we have from a national security perspective. We are food secure in this country. It means that we don't really have to import anything. We import stuff because we want to have things 12 months out of the year. But to survive, we can produce enough to feed ourselves. That is not the case in most countries in the world today. It's interesting, the president's over in South Korea, and it's interesting that North Korea came to the table, at least initially, theoretically, to talk about its nuclear program to make the world maybe a little safer by saying we're more interested in talking about our nuclear weapons and how we intend to use them and so forth. But we need something from the rest of the world. What is it that they need? They need food, because they simply don't produce enough. The Arab Spring, the uprisings in the Middle East, what was the cause? Unemployment and high food prices. So when I talk to you about the future that you have to basically recreate the American economy as a bio-based economy, less reliant on fossil fuels, less reliant on foreign oil, you have an amazing opportunity to make this world a much safer place. And so part of my answer is sort of a challenge back to you to be the ambassadors for agriculture. Don't let it be a guy in bib overalls chewing on some straw, right, as the image that people around this country have of a farmer. Make sure folks understand this is a sophisticated business. In some cases, it's a multi-billion-dollar small business enterprise. It has the latest technology. It's using satellite technology for planning decisions. It's extraordinarily complex in terms of financing. You have to understand world markets. And so being a farmer is really, really an interesting and challenging job and calling and life's work. And there is so much potential for what our farmers are able to do because they're so productive that we just enjoy this enormous diversity of food, this enormous affordability of food, and now we can use our capacity as a national security advantage. And then, not to mention the fact that we can literally produce everything we need in the economy from agricultural waste product like plants and animal waste. It's just an amazing future. And you all are going to shape it. You're the ones who are going to basically create it. You're going to be the scientists, the researchers, the machinists, the tool and die guys, the farmers, the ranchers, the marketers, the scientists. That's what you were going to be. And if you are excited about it, you'll raise the consciousness of the country about it. And as the consciousness of the country is raised about it, it makes it a little bit easier in this town for agriculture to be as well respected as it has gone. And that's all.
Thank you.
I'm Lawson Hamilton, a delegate from Texas. And my question is, what are your thoughts on the right of the USDA or any federal agency to regulate the eating or behavioral patterns of citizens?
Well, it's an interesting question. What do you mean by regulate?
Mandating, what they can and cannot buy, agricultural products, like that.
What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm from Texas, so I'm very pro-independence, and I, of course, think that that's a state and local decision about what they can and can't buy. But I was just wondering if such a situation arose, like the push to eliminate salt in like New York City and things like that, if there was a push for that on a national level, would you be in favor of that or not?
Well, let me just tell you why I kind of push back on this question. First of all, food safety. You interested in having safe food down there in Texas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I don't know that we necessarily want to have 50 different definitions of what safe is. So it may not be a bad idea for a federal set of regulations in terms of what constitutes safe food. So in a sense, we're regulating, if you will, what you can and cannot eat. We're deciding, for example, that it's not a good idea to have, E. coli in your hamburger. Not too many people will disagree with that type of regulation. Okay? The salt regulation and discussion is a complicated one because there's growing proof that we have far too much sodium in our diets, and that that's linked to a lot of chronic heart disease and other diseases, and it may be contributing to a number of healthcare issues, which we all know is a concern. Healthcare costs are a much larger percentage of our gross domestic product than they need to be if we want to have resources for research and grow this economy that I talked about. So do we have some obligation and responsibility to educate people about salt and the impact and effect it has? Let me just give you an example of this. Use of sodium. So if you go down the aisle, you've got three choices. You're a bright guy, I'm just quiz you on this. You've got three choices. You've got shredded wheat, no sugar, just plain shredded wheat. You have sugared shredded wheat, those little minis covered with sugar? Mm-hmm. And then you have reduced sugar shredded wheat. And you got a choice. Which is, in your view, the healthiest choice?
Well, the one without any sugar.
Okay. What's the second healthiest choice?
The one with reduced.
Yeah, see, that's where you're wrong. The reason, and that's what I would have said too, until I went down there, I was doing this, and I said, oh, reduced sugar, that's got to be better. No, actually, there's a system called Newell, which basically gives you a number, and it basically, 100 is like really, really healthy, and 1 is like, like when I eat it, you have a death wish. So shredded wheat is, it's like 99. Of course, how many people eat shredded wheat without adding anything to it? You have some fruit on it, or you put a little sugar on it. Seriously. And I said, well, the reduced sugar shredder has got to be better than the sugar shredder. No, it's not, because they add sodium to the reduced sugar shredder so that you have the taste of sugar. So actually, it's probably not as good for you as the full-blown sugar shredder. But I think the challenge here is to come up with ways that we educate people. And as we educate people, people will more times than not make the right choice. So I think to a certain extent it's a nice balance between basically telling the industry you got to reduce the sodium because it's killing us. But you also have to educate, we have to educate ourselves so we make informed choices. And we have to make labeling such that you don't have to have a chemistry degree to figure out what's healthy. And that's why we're putting front of label packaging, telling you the calories, telling you the sodium, the fat content, and a couple of good things about it, so that you can, as you go down the aisle, make a quick assessment of what's good for your family. The other flip side of this is this notion. Well, ask me about this. So, if we're giving SNAP benefits to people who are working but just not making enough money to take care of their family's needs, so we give them SNAP benefits, only known as food stamps. Do you feel that that should be regulated? Should we regulate the people who get food stamps?
Well, since you are providing the funds for them, yes, you can decide what they can and cannot purchase with them.
So it's okay to mandate stuff for poor folks, it's not okay to mandate stuff for folks who aren't poor.
Well, but it is, I mean, it's the federal government's money that's going to the SNAP program, but for private citizens just shopping, it's their own earnings.
Yeah, except that the SNAP folks basically use their own money as well. I mean, the point of this is that these are really hard questions. You know, they seem like simple things. You say, well, you know, the SNAP folks, they ought not to have to be able to use their SNAP to buy soda. Well, why is that? Well, because, you know, everybody knows that poor folks are more obese than they eat. Well, actually, that's not the case. It's roughly the same percentage. Poor folks, middle class folks, rich folks, basically the same obesity challenge. Well, they make different food choices. They're not as good at choosing food. No, actually, that's not true either. The food choices are pretty much the same. Well, you know, they're just basically not working, and why should I be paying for their treats? Well, 92% of the people on SNAP are either working, senior citizens, people with disability, or children. Which one of those groups do we really want to hit hard? People with disabilities, senior citizens who play by the rules, pay their taxes, and live on a low fixed income. We want to hit the folks who are actually working. It's no fault of theirs, or working a part-time job or a full-time job that doesn't pay very much, or we want to hurt the kids. Only 80% of SNAP beneficiaries are on cash welfare. So it's really, you know, it's an interesting discussion as to what the proper role is. But let me just end this conversation by saying it's a great question. You really have to think about all of the ramifications of it. And I think it is important for us to recognize that there are healthcare consequences to what we eat. And it's calories in and calories out. And that's why we've spent an enormous amount of time in the last year trying to get school lunches in better shape. I think we'll begin to see progress on that next school year. Hopefully over the course of the next couple of years, you'll see improvement in school lunches. Better taste, more fruits and vegetables, less sodium, less fat. And that to a certain extent is regulated. Because, you know, we want to make sure that the kids who are getting half or in some cases all of their calories at school lunch are getting the most richly dense and nutritious food that they can. Because we have an obesity issue. And it's an obesity issue that doesn't just impact the individual, it impacts the country. We had admirals and retired admirals and generals advocating for a school lunch improvement because they were concerned that only 25% of young people 19 to 24 years of age were fit for military service. And so they were concerned about the long-term viability of voluntary practice. So it's complicated, right? Good question.
Thank you.
Secretary, do you have time for one more question? Well, we're just checking because we want to be cognizant of your time.
Hello, I'm Jill Saller and I'm from Kansas. My question for you is,
What are you doing to support innovations in agriculture?
Wow. Well, the easy answer to that question is that we're supporting research in a wide variety of areas. We're doing research on crop production. We're doing research on plants and diseases that could potentially disrupt production. We're doing a similar type of activities in livestock, greater efficiency, looking at feed additives, things of that nature. We're also trying to make sure that government doesn't slow the process down for improvements that could potentially increase productivity. Now, there's a good debate and conversation in agriculture about whether or not it's better to be a biotech producer or whether it's better to be an organic producer. Folks feel very strongly about both ways. I happen to think that it's not my job to say this is better than that. My job is to make sure that everyone has the options and choices that they think are best for their operation. If you want to get into organic, we want to support you. If you believe in biotechnology and the capacity to increase productivity, and you see this as a way of dealing with rising populations globally, we want to be supportive. In any event, as new technologies emerge, we have a regulatory responsibility to make sure they're safe. And through the Plant Protection Act, so we need to make sure that we make decisions on a timely basis so that whatever innovation occurs gets into the marketplace as quickly and as safely as possible. So we've looked at process improvement to reduce the amount of time. So it's not just research, it's also the processes that you use that may make it easier or more difficult to get something into the marketplace. So that's an issue. We're also trying to encourage land-grant universities to work more cooperatively together. And the reality is that we're going to have fewer dollars overall within the federal government compared to the fiscal house in order. Every department's going to see cuts, reductions. And we've been encouraging the President and Congress not to reduce research funding. Ag research has been, for all intents and purposes, flatlined for a period of time, a long period of time. You know, NIH and National Science Foundation have seen their monies increase dramatically, billions and billions of dollars. Ag research is just as important as finding a cure for cancer. Because if 9 million people inhabit this earth during your lifetime, or 10 billion during your lifetime, and there's only enough food to feed 8 billion, if you think the world's a dangerous place now and a difficult place to live now, wait till there are billions of people who can't find enough to eat or enough water to drink. Now we have 925 million undernourished folks today in the world, but it isn't because we can't produce enough food. It's because we can't get the food we do produce to folks. It's because we don't do a good enough job of storing food in many of these countries. It's because we don't use basic ag productivity and technology to increase significantly productivity in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Southeast Asia, and in parts of Central America. As we do that, we will be able to meet the needs. But there will be a point, if we just remain static with our research, where population gains will overmatch or outstretch our capacity to produce. If that were to happen, this would be a far more dangerous world than it is today, far more dangerous. And so it's up to us to encourage innovation that's going to allow us to continue to be one step ahead of population growth and one step ahead of being able to meet the needs of the world population and be able to do it in a way that reduces our reliance on chemicals and pesticides, that allows us to maintain water quality, and also figures out a way in which we can do more with less water because we're going to be challenged. And finally, figures out ways in which we can do more with extreme weather conditions. Regardless of what you think about climate change, it's happening. And as it happens, the weather patterns are becoming more extreme. And as they become more extreme, they put greater stress on crops. If you doubt that, if there's anybody here from Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, anybody, you guys ever heard of Minor Field? Doing a little damage out there? It's just killing miniature trees. Why? Because winters weren't quite as cold as they have been in the past. Those little critters don't die like they used to. We didn't maintain our forests as well as we should, so they millions of acres of trees, and that creates not just a problem, it creates a hazard, fire season issues. Serious drought in Texas, historic droughts in Texas. Hurricanes last year. I was in a cabinet meeting with the president of the cabinet, and we were talking last May. The average number of tornadoes in this country, we've been keeping track of tornadoes forever. The average week in the United States, worst week would be about 150 tornadoes. In May of last year, we had weeks where there were 350 tornadoes. Wind speeds far in excess of what they've been in the past. And we had a tropical storm last year that damaged crops in upstate New York. Never happened before. So we got to figure out ways in which we deal with, through innovation, these extreme weather conditions so we don't wipe people out. So there are a lot of challenges, which is why we have to continue to put resources into ag research and understand that it's as important as all the other research activities. And I think there's a growing awareness of that. And when you add to that, and I'll finish with this, when you add to that the bio-based economy opportunities to reduce reliance on foreign oil, reduce reliance on fossil fuels that may be more damaging to the environment, and create a more sustainable cycle, similar to what nature does, where there is no waste, and you constantly recycle product, including waste product, and make new things from it. The future is just extraordinarily bright. To be a bright young person who's interested in rural areas, interested in agriculture, who is engaged in math and science, who knows how to work with their hands, and is proud of it, there are limited opportunities here. And you at 4-H have this enormous opportunity, but you also have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to go back into your schools, into your communities, to advocate for agriculture, for this new image of agriculture, and to encourage your friends and colleagues and co-students that you socialize with to consider careers in agriculture with the expansive definition. Because I guarantee you've been here 20 years from now, agriculture is really going to be a dominant issue and a dominant industry in this country. It always has been, but it's really going to be well understood. 20 years from now, you're on the cutting edge. You can be the pioneers of that. Thank you all very much for the great visit.
I guess it's now time for the youth leadership team members to take over again. Any last words, comments? Thanks for all of your participation here. We certainly appreciate the Second Lady as well as our Secretary speaking to and address the audience. What extremely thoughtful questions that you provided for him, and keep challenging yourselves while you're here for 4-H National Conference. I'm turning it back over.
All right, you guys are dismissed to go to your roundtables at 9:30, and then you have workshops after that.